Hello and welcome to cEDH Budget Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight I'm continuing in my series of beginning cEDH Meta Busters. I'm going to be talking about Buster-Thrasios and Tymna Razakats. Before I get started, please check out our Discord and Patreon. Links are in the description below. And if you enjoy our content, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps out a lot. It really does. So without further ado, let's get started. And tonight we're going to go over, as I said, a Thrasios and Tymna deck. I know this is the second one that I've done in the last couple of weeks, but they're both really separate archetypes. The last one was a Hulk, the other one is a Hulk deck, and this one is a Reanimator build. They both do have some overlap, but this list is by Scoots, who's been playing Razakats for years, is a very avid player, pilots it very well. And I think that there's basically as of right now, there's really three good, solid, viable archetypes: Hermit, the Hulk deck, and then Razakats. I think the days of the Thrasios Tymna midrange, while not over, or kind of sunsetted for the time being. I've been playing it quite a bit, and every time I pick it up, I just feel not having the red. And when I play Cats, or when I play Hermit, or when I play Hulk, I really feel like that's where Thrasios Tymna shines. And you still have the mid-range consult in there, and it's still your plan and your end game, but you're able to pivot to a win much more effectively than you are in the the CST style decks. Because you have a lot less A plus B combos, you can kind of assemble them off of less tutoring, or you have the ability to kind of tutor chain to your win, whereas in the CST builds, not so much. You kind of have to fight for it a little bit harder. So with the Hulk deck, like I described a couple weeks ago, this one again kind of has a relatively high floor, but the learning curve isn't as much between starting to learn the deck and really effectively piloting the deck, though it does reward your play skill, and the more comfortable and the more intimately knowledgeable you get of the deck, the better it will perform for you. So the basics is ours. You're gonna want to reanimate one of usually you have 2 or 3 different tutor targets. You'll have Razaketh, you'll have Villis, you might have an Elishnorn, you might have a Jindataxis, you might have a Nezahal, a Consecrated Sphinx, depending on the build. I know Scott, Jamaican, and I kind of all agree on we're not huge fans of the Consecrated Sphinx, even though it's a great card. It just tends to you wind up just spending all your time trying to protect it and not being able to leverage a win is the problem. And if you don't, you probably already had the win anyway, so you could have just picked a different target and gotten there. So the basic plan, and what makes Razakats such a good kind of Sans Red deck, is that you can win off of 2 tutors. And you can win from a board state of no mana as long as you have 2 creatures in play. So basically the way it works is you sack one of your mana dorks, and then you go and get LED, and then you sack your other dork, and you go and get Eternal Witness or Loris, depending on which one you're on. I personally prefer Eternal Witness because it just puts it back in hand and it gets around Drannith. And then you kind of tutor chain, and what happens is every time you play an Animate Dead, or a Dance of the Dead, or your Animate Dead, you net mana off of the LED because they only cost 2. When you cast Reanimate, you net mana off of the LED. Same thing with Life Death. You can also just tutor up Life Death, and now all your lands are your creatures. So again, it kind of it can kind of go off of this very small board state, which is very much akin to how the dockside decks are, where they can just have 2 lands in play, maybe a rock or 2, crap out of dockside, make 1,000,000 mana, and then do a bajillion things, right? So it's kind of the same kind of thing, and it's the same thing that was with the Hulk deck too, where you can kind of go from this innocuous board state to a win with very little setup. That's what makes these so effective. Whereas the CST style decks, the mid-range consult decks, you really have to have a lot more setup. Like either a Bloom Tender, or you're on with Freed from the Real, or you're on some kind of Scepter combo, or you have to tutor twice and get your consult and your Oracle. But you still have to it just requires more input to be able to get to there. So once you're done chaining all of your, you cast your Eternal Witness, you reanimate it, you sack it, and for the next one, you reanimate it again, and you're buying back that LED each time. You essentially wind up with triple white and 4 black. And that allows you to cast Auroch Salvagers, return the LED to your hand, play the LED for 3 white, and then essentially generate infinite mana from there. And then once you've done that, then you can transition into playing your Thrasios, drawing your deck, and then you just play your Oracle and win. The other thing you can do pretty easily also is, while you're doing that Eternal Witness loop, you can very easily set up having double blue 4 black, or even 3 blue 3 black. You wind up with 6 mana at the end of it, and you just tutor up Consult Oracle and win that way. So that's kind of the win on the spot way. And then the Salvager line is to kind of, if you're a little bit tighter on mana, and then you need to kind of draw some protection or interaction first. Then you kind of have a backup plan of Villas. Villas is really good, where Villas is a big card advantage engine. It's also removal against Hate Bears. So if they have a Drannith in play, if they have a Collector Oof, or one of the myriad of really overstated Hate Bears that have been printed in the last 2 to 3 years, you can use Villas to really kind of set up, clear the way, and then go from there. Plus, you're drawing 6-7 cards to kill a Drannith. You're drawing 6 cards to kill a Drannith for 3 black and 6 life. Then you have the standard interaction suite that you have in Sans Red. So you get Fierce, Fluster, Force, March, Source of Plowshares, Mental Misstep, Vanishing Verse. That's a big one I'm a huge fan of. There's a lot, especially now that there's the 3-color decks are all running the monocolored partners. I really think that Vanishing Verse is is really good. It hits a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff, and it's pretty innocuous. You still get access to Windfall. You got your Neoform, your Finale, and those things can kind of help you either buy back something or go find pieces you need, or you can just make a bunch of mana and just kill everybody that way. I mean, you could just E-Witness a bunch of times, and once you've got your Bomberman going, and then just cast the big Finale and kill everybody because you've drawn your deck and played all your dudes out. That's not the worst. Some of the deficiencies with the deck is, one, you're not running red. So you are going to be slower than your opponents. So you do have to keep that in mind. But again, just the ability, the explosiveness, the ability to go from a couple of lands and a couple of dorks is all the setup you need to a win is really, 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 really just kind of, I would say, kind of shows the power of the deck. I'll try to find a couple of gameplay videos. I know I have them. I mean, Scott's been playing this deck for years, and I've played a million games with him, and he plays it really well. And I'll ask him to send me some. I'm sure he has some, and I'll look around and I'll drop some in the description. But there's not, like, I don't feel like there's too much I really need to get into. There's not, I think it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part. Just one of the big things is that I will also, Shaper has a very good Razakats primer, and I will drop that in the link as a resource. And that goes over the Loris. The Loris on the Eat Witness line is essentially the same, with the exception that with Loris, you just cast it from the yard instead of return it to your hand and cast it. They both have their strengths and weaknesses. Ewit is better in a stacks meta where you see a lot of Draneth because you don't have to try to play it from yard. And then the Loris is better because it allows you to just play reanimation effects over, like your animate deads, if they just get stopped, it allows you to kind of rebuild and go from there. So that's really like the big difference between the two. But as far as like the combo with the sacking it and then getting the LED and buying it back with the next reanimation effect, generating that 6 mana at the end is just the same. So just to kind of close up and tidy this up, it's got a pretty decent like skill floor. Like it's a little bit of a challenge, but once you get there, you'll get rewarded. The learning curve is not as steep as like say the Hulk deck is that I talked about a couple weeks ago. Or last week, depending on when I post the video. But so the transition to optimal play versus just like kind of beginning to get it is much smoother. So therefore it's not quite as skill intensive as like it's still, I mean, all cEDH decks are skill intensive. But as far as like tight play, being able to outplay your opponents with the deck versus isn't as much. But you can definitely get them sometimes with some just nice lines that people don't see and some really good layering. So, with that, I think I'll head out for the night. Again, please hit that like, share, subscribe, comments in the description, comments below, and have a good night.